We live in a world where attention is so limited and everything's measured in almost picoseconds now. Sometimes it pays just to sit back and just listen to a story, and you'll be greatly rewarded.
I was reading a newsreel about the Picton Catholic priest who had posted in their community bulletin that none of the congregation should attend any pride events because they're after our children. So I thought to myself, something's got to be done. And a young man in Picton had organized a peaceful demonstration in front of the church for that Sunday, which was Father's Day. I arrived, I didn't know anybody because I hadn't been living there that long. So I just kind of watched as people were, children were drawing on the sidewalks, and there was clergy there, and there was teachers there, and, queer families with their kids. And I thought, this is a beautiful thing. And then I looked up at the church, and they had really big oak doors, and they were closed. And I thought to myself, those doors should be open to us. So I walked up the steps, and I turned around and I looked at the crowd, and I hadn't been on those steps for more than 2 minutes when 3 men, I call the Dark Horsemen, came out that door and demanded that I get off the steps. To which I replied, I have every right to be here. I qualify as a Catholic, and I'm staying here. And it drove them nuts. They couldn't have been worse to me than they were. The things that they were saying, that they demanded I get off and trying to bully me into getting off the steps. And at one point I just put my hand up to them and I turned to the crowd and I thought, this is who I need to pay attention to. These 3 horsemen are just representing hate. I want to experience this love in front of me. A young woman came up to the steps, and she said to me, can I stand with you? She was 17. I could have cried.
Yeah.
I could have cried, and I thought to myself at that time, our kids are okay. Not all of them, maybe. But to have this 17-year-old butch walk through that crowd, walk up the steps to stand beside me was another moment in my life I will never forget. But it enraged the 3 horsemen even more and said, we're going to go get the police. And I said, away you go. 5 minutes later, the horseman returns with the only lesbian police officer for 100 miles.
That is priceless.
I know.
I love it.
But then we set about, as a group, including that 17-year-old butch, to form a committee and have change happen in that community.
Some of the struggles are such that they were real, where people could get fired. People could get disowned by their family. They could get, there were a lot of really serious ramifications for just simply being who we were. And it's not that has completely disappeared from the lineup that some folks, the younger folks of today, are dealing with, because I think there's still a lot of religious decision-making being done in terms of if you fit into our family or our community, and that's unfortunate. We can understand, those of us who have gone through those struggles, I can understand that. But I guess in order for us to feel that we can draw on each other's strength, if we were to sort of imagine we aren't all the same, and that is okay. So maybe just giving each other a little bit of a pass. If we aren't necessarily using the same language, if we aren't necessarily in the same pocket, I think that's maybe the best way to describe it. We just hope that maybe that pocket can be expanded to become a pouch. It can become a pouch that will include several pockets and that we're all in it together.
I don't feel like I fit in, and it's so interesting because people think they have stereotypes about, well, he's a gay man, so he must like fashion, he must like to decorate, he must like food, he must, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, and he must keep up with all pop culture. One thing that I would say you know, to offer, if I can, any form of wisdom from all of this to the 2S LGBTQ plus AI community is, if you don't feel like you fit in with a group of people, there is a group of people you'll fit in with. You just need to find them, right? And if you feel like, you know, if you don't feel supported in your journey, know there's other people who don't feel supported in their journey just like you out there. And that our big job right now is to try and connect people up so that we can form these communities, because there's no one, you know, queer community. There's no one pride community, whatever you want to call it now. I'm not sure what to use anymore, but it's a whole bunch of other communities.
So in January of 2002, myself and Dan Still were involved with Halo's Pride organization, and every meeting it was, well, there's no money, so we got to make it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And Danny and I were looking at it, and we just got out. We're finally human beings again. There's no way we can go back into the closet, and there's no way we can allow this. That year they'd done the first Western Fair Pride, maybe the second, and we said, we got to keep this going. We've got to keep, so Danny talked to his partner Michael, and Michael worked at TD and sort of funded the whole thing and incorporated, put it all together. So from January, February 2002, right through to Pride 2004. So I started working with the Londoners spring of 2005. So for those 3 years, I basically starved. I was on welfare, unemployment for a little while. 1 year, my average income was about $4,000. Yeah, and so it was really lean. I worked for those first 3 years. I was putting in about 60 hours a week for Pride. You know, I helped write the bylaws, all the calls for submissions. I reinvented the art show. I took the community guide, the Pride guide, and turned it into a community directory, because that was one of the things I realized. Everybody was asking, what can I do? But no, there was no one thing where anybody could write down and say, here's a resource. Here, phone these people, look at this website. And that was a big change. And I think one of the things that really helped establish the community is having that single resource where people once a year can pick something up and see who the people in their community were. Later on, it says, what's one of the things you're most proud of? When I started Pride in 2002, I'd be walking downtown and I'd see people I know, and they would walk across the street so they wouldn't run into me, because being seen with me would be like outing them. And now, even just last night, there's a couple of guys who live downtown. I see them out walking hand in hand all the time. Like, that would never happen 20 years ago.
But I don't think whether it was 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020, or 2030, I don't think the story changes too much. You know, technology changes, environment changes, but the story doesn't change. That have faith in yourself, be kind to yourself, and surround yourself by kind people, and you will make it. And you will thrive and live a good life.
Well, it's kind of a two-way street. You have to treat somebody with respect as well. You know, as they say, it's kindness, that's all you ever need.
But in Canada and many progressive nations around the world, it's like, why wouldn't I just be me, right? You are walking in the steps of those that came before you, who did the work, right? We did this work, and now you can just, it's there for you to just take it up and be like, well, I can just do this. Yeah. Well, it took me I have trans friends in their 60s, 70s, older, you know, to live their entire life, and they couldn't, and they still couldn't, you know, and they're still afraid. Some of them just never bothered, right? It's an enormous privilege to live in a society, in a place where you can just decide that it is safe enough for you to just let your personal identity and sense of self, freak flag, whatever you want to call it, fly. Just be who you are, and and not feel a sense of fear, shame, anything. And that's because there were a lot of people who came before you.
I really do see you for who you are. And I am going to make mistakes. I want to celebrate with you.
Yeah.
Changing the language is the key element. So if you give some thought to what words you have used in this conversation and figured out ways you could say that in a more gentle fashion, that's helpful. Be more inviting.
Don't ever give up. Today may be a bad day. Others' opinions don't really matter. It's what you think of you. If you have a dream, write it down. And at the end of the day, if you didn't accomplish it, don't throw that paper away. Keep that dream.
I would say find your support people. And if you can't quite figure out who it is, call an elder. If you can find a small group of people where you can make sure that you're supporting your heart, your soul, and your passion, I think finding meaningful connections is really important.
I need to be honest with myself and really accept that, I'm a gay person and this is who I am.
Why did you choose to be queer? I didn't choose to be queer. It's just who I am.
I didn't know what being trans was at that time. And I certainly didn't know what being intersex was at that time.
I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. You don't have to love me, but I am going to stand up for you.
Having the basic right of same-sex spousal benefits is something that every other person assumed they could have when they were hired by the board.
When I had a taste of community, it was like, wow, that feels really good. I want more of that.
We raised money. We had these dances and we raised enough money to lease 649 Colburn Street.
Place your energy in the people who you feel are going to be most supportive and loving of your situation.
For gay people, stop feeling guilty. You can't feel guilty about being who you are.
We can't change anybody's view, but what we can do is we can show goodness.
The reason why we're doing this is because we need to come together. We need to listen to each other and we need to support each other. We need to stop tearing each other apart.
We have to be united because of all of the battles ahead, but we have to also recognize that we have different perspectives.
But the good thing is to know that you're in good company, because there's a lot of us that have gone through stuff. And I think sometimes it's a matter of wanting to find out what's your story.